voice his opinion about it. But in the end, I think we worked well together. I learned a lot from him. I hope he learned from me as well. I'm going to be losing, a very good employee next door, someone very reliable. But I'm happy to say in my tenure there, I've gained a really good friend. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. And is Greg in the room? I can't see anybody.
No, he's not.
No, it figures.
We got a new
What's up,
podium.
Greg?
Don's at
What's that?
the podium.
More public comment.
Yep.
Don Miskill, Mitchell Field Stewart. The weather's getting warm, and I'd like to appeal to all the dog walkers at Mitchell Field to remember that we have dog stations, and we'd like you to clean up. If it's on the cut grass, it's not out in the tall grass, pick it up. We have volunteers that, believe it or not, go around every day and are picking up 25, 30 separate loads. And a lot of it's at the waterfront where people recreate, and we have day camps and everything else. And it flows into the ocean if you don't. So just a reminder, pick up after your dogs, please.
All right. Anybody else?
Look like it.
We good? All right. Select board announcements.
I've got a couple. Well, you'll be getting things in the mail. Spray your yard for mosquitoes and ticks. Find you spiders. Think about that. There are ways to get rid of mosquitoes and ticks for them. Also, John Gillum Day is coming up a week from Saturday. Roadside. This year we're going to do all next week. Get free trash bags at the stores. You can. One of the main roads, the Hundy's Harbor Road, or 120 Mountain Road. Up. Then on the 19th, come over. Pizza. Here's some.
David, your mic's breaking up. I don't know if it's you or me.
Did anybody hear what I said? I'm going to say it again because it's important.
Yeah, do it again. That's much better, whatever you did.
Careful about using bug spray around your yard. You're going to be getting advertisements for spraying bugs, and just be careful about that. And John Gillum Day is coming up a week from Saturday. It's the 19th. It's roadside cleanup, and what did I say before? It's going to be starting next week, so we're going to do it starting Monday. We're going to do it all week, and gives you a chance for, the weather might not be good on Saturday, for example, but it's going to be good all next week, I think. So you can pick up the trash and leave it on free trash bags at the store. You can leave the trash bag on the road, on one of the main roads. It'll be picked up on next Saturday, and then Saturday the 19th, come here at noon for free pizza for all the volunteers. Okay, I will.
All right, that was better.
All right.
Anything from you, Matt?
No, I got nothing.
All right, town administrators report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I do want to follow up on what Chuck Perot said, the manager of the recycling center and transfer station, that Greg has been a model employee. We're sorry to see him go, but we understand that retirement is calling. We do have a recommendation tonight for the board to replace Greg, and that would be Keith Langston of Oars Island. Chuck and I went through the interview process. We had a number of candidates apply. We interviewed 3. And we are recommending that Keith Langston be hired, starting effective April 18th at $21 per hour.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Anybody left? All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you, Chuck. I also wanted to mention that with the passage of the budget and the municipal firefighters having coverage now 7 days a week versus 5 days a week from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., the fire administrator, Mike Drake, effective the first week of April, started to implement that new schedule. So for 4 days, Monday through Thursday, 6 a.m., 6 p.m., the municipal firefighters are stationed at Oars Island. And then on Friday through Saturday, Sunday, they're stationed at Harpswell Neck. And that's how it's going to work for now. So that is in place, and we just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. And the last item I wanted to report on has to do with the potential lease with Harpswell Aging at Home at Trufant Somerton Field. We have learned that because the town financed Trufant Somerton with land and water conservation funds, we technically cannot lease part of that entity
Has to be
to
for outside recreation.
primarily, yes, for recreation. So, we explained our situation. There might be a few kind of informal things we can do with them, but that's just not going to work out for a long-term lease. So I wanted to make sure the board was aware of that. Thank you. That concludes my report.
All right, thanks, Christie. Consent agenda?
I'll move the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes and Midcoast Humane Contract, a grant application to the Maine Municipal Association, and accept a community garden grant, and appoint a deputy registrar and authorize the warrants.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? I don't see any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. All right, consider June 10th referendum items. Central Emergency Services Building, Administration Building, Harbor and Waterfront amendments, and set a public hearing time and location.
So if I could just provide a little bit of background, the board already approved putting the Central Emergency Services Building on the secret ballot for June 10th. You agreed to have the fiscal note show a 20-year bond and the interest for that period of time. So that would be printed on the referendum ballot.
This
You've
is
already-
exactly what I was looking for, by the way, all the information that's
Okay.
needed, yeah.
Yeah. So you had already essentially approved that, and we believe that's recommended by all three board members. The next item is the administration building at Mitchell Field. You had considered removing that from what was initially the March 8th town meeting and not to hold it on the March 22nd special town meeting when it was primarily a budget meeting. And now you're considering putting an article in front of the voters on June 10th by secret ballot. There's the article that was in the previous town meeting warrant, and then there is a proposal from another group that you consider an alternate article. So you have that information in front of you tonight. And I believe the folks wanted to speak to the board. They asked to make sure that this item would be on the agenda tonight.
All right.
Headed to the podium.
Good evening, Dorothy Rosenberg, Basin Point Road. And I'd like to give you copies of this.
I can pass it down. Thank you.
Thank you. So what we're asking, actually, is to put two items on the ballot. What we really think would be helpful is if we separated out the question of the remediation work, because that needs to be done whatever is going to be done. However, the disposition of the building, whether it's going to be demolished, whether it's going to be reworked or repurposed, the toxic materials have to be removed first. So what we're proposing to you is to separate this into two questions. The first question would be to see if the town would use the amount of money that has been estimated in order to pay for the remediation. We think that's something that pretty much everybody can agree on, because it needs to be done, but also because a lot of people would like to have closure on this question, and I think this is the way that we could do it. The second question offers people two choices, one of which is to and I can read it if you'd like for people who are not here, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to enter into a lease agreement, including performance goals and timeline, with a nonprofit organization to repurpose the Mitchell Field Administration Building for community, recreational, and educational use at no cost to the taxpayers. That would be option one. The second option would be to see if the town will vote to approve no more than $100,000 from unassigned fund balance to demolish the Mitchell Field Administration Building after it has been cleared of hazardous materials. That way we're setting up a clear decision, because there are people on both sides of this question who would like their opinions to be taken into consideration. We've changed that number to 100,000 from 80,000 because we believe, from asking around, and we can get more details about this, that what you're currently working with as the cost of demolition is a significant underestimate, and we would strongly encourage the town to ask for a contemporary now actual cost of the demolition and the removal of the materials, which some of which would have to be handled at a special facility. We can go into the pros and cons of what we want to do, but I think it would be better to, first of all, ask Bob if he'd like to talk about why the costs are different, if you'd like more information on that.
Good evening. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chair and Select Board members. Bob Goodrow, Great Island. The reason we would like to see option 2 in the removal, just to be clear, if you do option 1, vote on the $150,000 for remediation and cleanup, the building is then clean. So really then demolition is actually, you can take the demo anywhere. You can fill a hole in Harpswell somewhere. But currently, the way the warrant is written at $230,000, you would have to take the remediation wouldn't be clean building, and it would have to be removed to Bangor. And I don't think anybody's estimate included that. Equally, the Beacon report doesn't take the slab out, and that in turn leaves you just a concrete slab that probably nobody is going to use. So it would be best to get a real number for 2B, I'm sorry, the complete removal, and get that so that it's a sewn number and everybody's cognizant of what it's going to cost, whether it's 200,000 or more. The reason I say I believe the 200,000 is the real number for demolition is that there's 2 reports that say that it's a $200,000 number. I've done my own estimate on weight and number of trucks and haul time, and I'm closer to 200. I'm not at 200, but let's get a real number there instead so that it's fair and everybody knows what the number is to begin with. So that doesn't mean I know my magic, but I've been doing it for 40 years, and I kind of come close most of the time. I've been successful at this. So our recommendation is approve this or go out and let's get a real demolition number for 2B and make sure we have it right for the warrant. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you. What's up?
I have a question. A hypothetical question, I guess. What, does the group do if the town votes no to 1 and yes to 2A?
I think that question is even more obviously or obscure with the 230 singular warrant. It puts everything in a no man's land. So I'm not saying no, I agree.
But you see the dilemma that would be created there.
There's all kinds of dilemmas throughout the warrant question itself. The remediation has to take place. Nobody can do anything with the building without the remediation. And so it just ties everybody's hands to be able to move one way or the other. We have 2 different reports, the Mitchell Field survey report, and we have the MCOG report that says at least 50% of the citizenry or those that answered the survey said that they'd like to see the building renovated and reused. So let's at least give this an opportunity. If it goes down in fire, I guess we come back. But at least this way, one group or the other knows whether they're moving forward. And I think that's a prudent there's a conclusive end to the discussion here. David?
Thank you. I went into this with a desire to move forward, and where we were, if the original question failed, nothing, we're not moving forward. We'd have to go back and do this all over again. So what you've proposed here is actually what I had in mind. So it's up for discussion with the board here, but the decision whether to demolish the building or to keep it or use it is not our decision. It's the voters' decision, and our job is to provide them with the best information we can to make that decision. And I think we're headed in the right direction with this.
Our committee met with Mitchell Field Committee, and we both stepped away from the meeting saying thank you, but we did not get anywhere within the two organizations. I'm not saying ours is the absolute. Let's let the voters decide. And that's what we're trying to make it as clear as possible for our citizenry to speak.
Yeah.
Anybody else before I speak? No. My position hasn't changed at all. I want the original warrant item that we had initially. I've said from now on, the building should come down. I don't believe any of the groups can raise the money that it takes. And then I also see the town involved spending our resources on it afterwards. As far as maintenance goes or manning the building, it's one more thing that's headed our way in this town. We're getting money going to the fire departments and all these other things. And I think the building just has to go once and for all. So it's up to my two other selectmen to either agree with me or don't agree with me.
Well, as I've said before, if that original question is voted down, we're left hanging. So
well, as Matt said, the other proposal, if one of them gets turned down, you're left hanging there too. So either way.
I agree.
Well, but question one needs to be answered either way. Either way, that needs to be answered.
Yeah. So
I
what I'm
think we
saying,
answered that in the original question. I tend to kind of agree with Kevin on this, and if the town chooses they don't want to demolish it, and they're going to vote no on that original question, and then that's when we approach the group to see if they can raise the funds.
then we'll have to revisit it. In the meantime, we'll see what the voters have to say. And as far as the group goes, it's got 2 months to sway some opinions.
Recording in progress.
That's nice.
Is there anybody else there to speak on this? I can't see the room, unfortunately.
Yes, we have one coming.
Hang on.
Uh-oh.
Hi there. My name is Erin O'Mara. I'm on Ash Point Road.
Can you still hear me, Terry?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I won't pretend to be an expert on this.
Did you lose us? We hear you, Kevin.
What I would like, and what I would like the board to consider,
Terry.
is putting the most clarity possible in...
What happened? You can't hear me? Oh, sorry.
Is creating the most clarity possible
I
so
couldn't
that
hear
when
anything.
voters
I
are
can't hear
voting,
you
they
guys.
understand what their choices are.
All right.
I don't understand that removing hazardous waste from that building has to be tied to demolishing the building. It's not clear to me that
I
has
hear
to be
nothing
that
from the
way.
room.
If it doesn't, I can't imagine there are people in Harpswell that want Harpswell to continue to have hazardous waste. So if we could remove on that, if we could create clarity in our choices and our vote, I think the voters would be grateful.
Well, there will be a public hearing, obviously, where a lot of this will be explained. The reason why it needs to be remediated first and all of that, so.
Leanne Grillo, Harpswell. I think that the first warrant item is fairly confusing for people to deal with. And if they vote it down, and, if we put a lot of feelers out there and work really hard to campaign against it, and it gets voted down, we lose a year. If, if we are able to get people to make a clear statement about the demolition or the repurposing plus the remediation, it would put, and as Bob said, put an end to it. We'd have the decision in the town. And separating these out just adds so much clarity. I think, as Erin said, everybody's going to want to get rid of the hazardous waste. There's no reason to keep it. And being able to separate these two out and letting people really make the decision. I mean, you've said, Matt, also that the people should decide. So this gives them the choice. The other warrant item does not. Thanks.
So Matt, if you put 1 and 2B together, you have the original question. So, I mean, all it's doing is separating it out.
But I think it separates it out in the way that the question was originally worded. It says right in there, do you want to demolish? And I guess the issue I have going with the second question is I don't like the idea of the town. It's not my choice either, but it seems much more confusing to me with given these options. And if people vote no on 1 and then yes on 2A, we have a big dilemma on our hands there, because we've got to enter into a lease agreement and we have a hazardous building with no funds or way to remove it.
I can't see that happening, but this will be cleared up in the public hearing.
I think this clears it up, because if people don't want it demolished, they're going to vote no on the way that it's worded now. And then that clearly says that they don't want to see it torn down. They'd like to see something else done with it.
Then what?
And then that's when we can approach this group. And I'll admit, too, I came in as the selectman kind of in the middle of this process. But to my understanding, this group was given kind of a planned that they had to meet by January 15th back in September, and that wasn't met either. So I just don't like...
Well, I think they did cross all of the T's and dot all the I's and fill in all the blanks for the most part.
Where's the funding then?
Yeah. There's nothing really on financials. There was no real good business plan. We gave them an extension into February. We've bent over backwards. There's just no progress. So, I'm sticking with my original.
I would say it again, this is not our decision to make, it's the voters. And we have someone someone's at the podium.
All right.
My name is Nancy Rose, and I'm from Harpswell Neck. I've listened to the last meeting on television, and I listened to this one here. One huge difference between having the spread out options is that had we been able to have this discussion at town meeting, amendments could have been made there. Had this been able to be discussed at town meeting, everybody could have asked what questions they wanted to have. And the speaker before me was very clear in stating that if we go with the original one and we do manage to vote against the demolition, then we waste another year. And as I recall, that was one of the major concerns people had at the last selectmen's meeting, was that we'd have lost another year. By doing it with the way it is spelled out this way, you have the option of knowing that you can get rid of the hazardous wastes, which I agree with you, David, that the chances of it not passing are very slim. And then you still have the town ability to make their voices heard on which of the other two options to follow that up with, complete demolition or the other thing. I think that is at least one small way that people can make up for not having the opportunity to discuss it at town meeting, by putting it in a silent ballot, secret ballot, you're removing that option of being able to talk to it. And I know that you're going to have hearings on it, but you don't get the number of people throughout the town coming to hearings, public hearings. You just don't. So to me, this seems like the way to have the most people be able to weigh in the most adequately on their opinions. Thank you.
I can't see question 1 being turned down because it has to go either way, whether it's demolished or renovated, one has to still happen. Go ahead.
Hi, Katie Neal from Harpswell Neck. I am under the impression that the remediation that would need to happen if the building was demolished is different and a different line item than if the remediation that would happen if the building was going to be rehabbed and turned into something different. So if we're talking about an item that is addressing removing the hazardous material, you really need to have 2 separate line items because those are different costs associated with the project. At least that's the impression that I'm under. I also am not so sure that we actually lose a year if this does not pass, because I think that we're hoping to have a boat launch installed, that the whole waterfront area is going to be changing in the next year, and that gives the town and the voters an opportunity to really think through what they want down there. Is this admin building and site that people will use or not use the best place for it? And I think we should make progress with the other projects that we're having down at Mitchell Field and take the year to think through, should the voters not agree to demolish the building?
My name is John Pearson, and I'm a voter in Harpswell. And I think the separation of the question makes it easier for a voter to make a decision. So I favor that position.
Bill Snellings. I live in Oars. I don't always agree with John, but I agree strongly with that. I think the voter needs to see the proposal and see it broken down so they understand what's going on.
Anybody else? Yep, I see somebody. Oh, there we go.
Howard Marshall, Harpswell Neck. I just have a couple of questions, and one is, if, as Katie says, the remediation is different, is the cost any different, I guess is the question there. It may be, there may be different techniques required, but it seems like it's going to be in a similar ballpark. And my other question is, can the second question be made completely contingent on the passage of the first one? Because clearly, as Matt points out, if the first question fails, the second question is moot. And can it be worded that way?
Could be, I suppose, yeah.
Kathy D'Agostino, Great Island. I'm not standing here to think I know a lot about all this stuff, but if I was a voter and went into the voting booth and somebody said, going to take this building down and it's going to cost X amount. This one said, we're going to refurbish the building and at no cost to you. We're going to just go with donors and we're going to have it. And I've seen the plans. They're beautiful. I think it would be an asset to the waterfront. And personally, if there's any lumber left over, please build a little ramp to the beach. We're the oldest town in the oldest state, and it's a broken hip waiting to happen. But anyway, I think that there should be an absolute 2 questions. Are you want this or do you want that? People don't know. And when they go into the voting booth, they don't go to meetings. They will go and vote. So that's my opinion on the whole thing. I think there should be really a lot of clarity here. Thank you.
Hang on, Kevin, one more coming.
Oh, yeah, I can see the room now.
Oh,
Thanks,
okay.
Matt.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Kevin.
It
You got
just
to sit through this. Spike Heibel, Harpswell Neck. The thing that's lost in all of this, and only Katie Neal referenced it, is that we are going to build a boat launch, and one of the decision-making points for the Mitchell Field Committee when I was on it was the boat launch is taking precedence for what needs to happen at the waterfront right now. And the building is sitting in the middle of everything at the waterfront. And when the boat launch goes in, which is not if, but I think that's a when, then the way the waterfront is used is going to be different. And the renovation of the building, as proposed by the admin building group, in my opinion, and maybe others, impinges on how the waterfront will get used. And the building is already an eyesore, and you can talk about your 50-50 representation on a survey from a couple years ago, which was fair. But if you are at Mitchell Field and you ask anybody, what do you think should happen to this building? They say, well, why is it still here? So that is the fundamental question, is that the waterfront is for use as a waterfront area for boat launch, for beach, for waterfront recreation. It's the way it's used now, and the building is an impediment to an improvement of that. I get the desire to have these different questions, but the real question is, should that building be there at all? The admin building group has often said, well, we're willing to negotiate, but they've never put forward a negotiation to the Mitchell Field Committee that I know of, nor the group that I represent. And so pretty much it's going to be the building, a stage stuck out front, and that's going to be that, a revised traffic pattern that would involve shutting off the waterfront road when they found it necessary to do that, which I think I don't think that's for the people of Harpswell. I think that's for the individuals who were going to manage that building and make enough money on it to try and pay it off, or to try and pay for whatever maintenance there is. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a community center, but they have designed a community center which is further restricting what's happening at the waterfront. And the simplest question is, should the building be there at all? And I think the way the question is written now, the first question, is the way to go. People say they want to keep it. Well, we've spent so much time, wasted so much time on this already. We can waste another year, I guess. Same with the boat launch. It's taken forever, and now we're getting it. So I don't think we should be afraid of having to take more time if there's a resounding vote to say, keep it. But if there's a vote to say, take it down, we need to take it down. Thank you.
So those points need to be made at the public hearing, and I hope you come and do that.
I'm Mose Price, I live on the Neck. I'm also a member of the Mitchell Field Committee. And when the admin building group came and met with us, the premise that they presented was compromise. And I said then, and I want to repeat myself, I think a lot of the ideas that they have on their plan are good, but not at the admin building. For instance, I support an open-air pavilion. I think that would be an outstanding addition to Mitchell Field, and place it in such a position that it might be beneficial for bandstand users and visitors, as well as for other venues that people would want to use it for. And it would still provide a view of the ocean, but it would not be on the waterfront. Because as Spike just said, that building changes everything down there that we might be able to do or want to do in the future, especially after the boat launch gets put in place. And we can see what the traffic flow does, how we need to reconfigure the flow, or whatever we may need to do after the boat launch becomes active and used, and it will. But I think compromise may not be the correct word, but I do think that there are options that we could take advantage of that this other group has presented without using that building and blocking the waterfront access. Thank you.
I'm going to say it again, these arguments are for the public hearing. What we need to decide tonight is to create ballot questions that are clear and concise and allow us to move forward.
Well, is there anybody else? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Sorry. Philip Connor from the NEC. I'm also on the Mitchell Field Committee, and I have watched or attended meetings all through the process of designing the waterfront. And I just want to clear up some things that were a little misleading. The design of the boat launch considered the presence of the admin building all the way along, and we talked about the traffic, how that was going to be down there, and we talked about closing off the road that comes in front of the admin building between the road and the beach, and that's in both plans. So it will fit there, and it's been considered all the way along. So this is not something new that's going to interfere with the boat launch. We've really got a choice here of providing the voters with a clearer to me way to choose what to do, and I think it would be a disservice to throw them the one complicated question to choose from, which will leave us back to square one if we vote that down. So I request that we make the change in the warrant to what we have suggested here tonight. Thank you.
All right, look, I'm going to make a motion that we utilize this three-part question given to us, and that we seek a newer estimate for demolition to put in there on question 2B.
I cannot go along with that.
I can't either.
No.
Dorothy Rosenberg again. I'd appreciate it if someone could explain to me why you don't want to let the citizens of the town say they want to keep the admin building. If I look at the results of the survey that were done, a little more than 55% were in favor of keeping it, a little more than 44% were in favor of demolishing it. There are 11 pages of recommendations that people took the time to write separately, in addition to filling out the survey. The large majority of them are for ways in which the admin building can be reused. This was a process that was quite extensive. In addition to the survey and the questions, there were also a number of workshops. And it came up, and the town paid for it, which came up with a process for how to go forward with this, to figure it out over a period of 2 years to see if it could be reused and if the money could be raised. And we haven't done that. I understand why people want closure. I understand why people want this clarified. I don't understand why we can't let the people vote positively, as well as telling them, well, you can vote negatively, and then we'll see what we're going to do. That strikes me as being not the best way to approach a situation where there's disagreement of opinion. Let people express their opinions and let them figure it out at the ballot box.
As passionately as people in this room might speak, including the folks on this board, it makes no difference. It's what we do at our public hearing and providing a clear and precise way for people to vote. And my motion stands on the floor.
I think the way that the question's worded gives a pretty clear question. Do you want to demolish it or not? If they vote yes, we demolish it. If they vote no, it doesn't. I disagree that we have to wait a year. That gives the group till, say, September to come up with the money again, and then it can go on to a November warrant item at our November election, and we can ask these 2A, 2B questions then if the town votes not to demolish it at that point. But I think we need to let the voters decide if they want to demolish it or not. And I think the way that the question's worded does just that.
Yeah. Is that a motion, Matt?
No, I'm going to let this gentleman speak first. And
Oh, he still can. You can make the motion, I can second it, then we open it up for more discussion.
No, please don't. Hear me out first.
I'll let him speak first.
Thank you, Matt. Frank D'Agostino, Great Island. I worked in lending my entire life and career, I should say. And full disclosure, it's very important in lending. It's very important when we make this decision as well. To tell people or put a decision in front of them, do you want to demolish the building, yes or no? Fails to tell them there is an alternative to demolishing the building. That doesn't seem fair to me. I, as a voter, want all that information in front of me. There is an alternative, full disclosure. What you're doing here is similar to a shell game. You're not giving us all the facts on this ballot. And that is fundamentally flawed. And it should not pass. And the other thing I like to mention about the boat launch, as someone prior to me stated, the boat launch design was created with that building being present. My understanding is that the boats and the trucks that will bring them down there will come down the road behind the building. If you decide to put the trucks coming down the road in front of the building, that's going to affect all other activities down there, including the beach. And it seems to me you route the traffic behind the building. I believe that is originally planned. And we have full disclosure before the voters when this comes up for ballot. To do otherwise is a disservice to us citizens of Harpswell. Thank you.
One more, Kevin.
All right.
Courtney Snellings, Orr's Island. I did not come tonight to speak. I'm not on either of the committees. I'm just listening. But just speaking as a citizen, as a voter, separating the question into two parts is much clearer to me and gives me more choice as a voter than having it the original warrant question. So I'm just, as I said, speaking as a citizen, as a voter, as someone who just came to the meeting to have a date with my husband because I never see him. So that's the way it goes. But anyway, I really felt, after listening to what people said, that it gives the voters more scope if it's separated into two. Thank you.
If we leave the warrant article the way it was, it's tantamount to us making that decision for the voters. And it's steering it in a way that, it's not open and clear. So, we really need to address this in a clear and concise way and leave it so that it's not hanging. This allows us to move forward, and it surely allows us to move forward. And my motion is still on the floor.
I'll make mine a motion, Kevin, and I would be more apt to go with that second option if they had met the framework that was laid out in front of them by that, even the extension, even the February 15th deadline, but the financials seem to be lacking. As you said, the business plan seems to be lacking, so I make a motion that we leave the warrant question as it is to see if the town will vote to appropriate up to $230,000 from the unassigned fund balance for the demolition of the Mitchell Field Administration Building, including the removal of hazardous materials, and further to authorize the select board to accept and expend any grants funds for this purpose. That's my motion.
All right. I second it. Is there any more discussion?
Yes. We submitted a proposal that conformed to all the pieces that were asked of us. I'd really appreciate you telling me how the business plan and the budget and the way we laid it out was not a business plan or not adequate.
You didn't show you were able to secure the financing.
To secure financing, we would need the town support moving forward. People who would...
That's how we can get it, is by voting yes or no whether to demolish it or not.
The problem is that because you've included remediation in that piece, it biases what you're asking. I mean, if you're concerned that our first proposal wouldn't pass, then it doesn't make sense, because everybody's going to vote for remediation. I'm going to vote for remediation. However, because you've tied it to the demolishing of the building, what option do I have? Then I have to vote against remediation? I don't want to vote against remediation, but you're not giving me that choice. All you're giving, if I vote for the way it's written, I'm automatically voting for the demolishing of the building, right?
Yes.
I don't want to vote for the demolishing of the building. All I want to do is remediate the toxins at this point. You're not giving me that choice as a voter, as a member of this town.
The Mitchell Field Committee did not recommend it that way. You guys had the opportunity, as several people from the committee have stated, to come up with a proposal. This was what the Mitchell Field Committee recommended, I believe, as well, correct? To the question on the warrant item?
Yep.
The chair is
Dawn,
here.
can you confirm?
That is correct. Don Miskill, Chair of the Mitchell Field Committee, Stewart.
And I mean, there's no better expert on Mitchell Field than Don Miskill himself. I would dare to say that man spends half his life there, if not 3/4. I don't know when he sees his wife. And I believe in listening to the experts on stuff like this. And this is what the Mitchell Field Committee, which is the expert on Mitchell Field, recommended. I'm sticking to my guns. That's correct, right, Don?
Yeah. The only other comment that I would make listening to everything tonight, and I'm not talking about the question as much as everybody sees the building as whether it directly conflicts with the routing of traffic directed to the boat launch. And we already made that decision so that it didn't. It's going to use the old service road that we used to take out the old pier. So the boat launch traffic is separate. The reason the Mitchell Field Committee does not recommend keeping the building is because that's only half the problem. The other problem is we still have people that want to use the beach. They want to come down and offload kayaks. They want to come down and have picnics. We have day camps that come. If we leave that building there, we have no option of separating out the beach traffic separate from the boat launch traffic. It all has to then mix. And so the reason we wanted to take the building out is because that gives us an option of creating a separate loop of the traffic that works with the beach for swimmers, boaters, and just day picnickers. And that's, I want to make sure that we understand, it's not so much that the building is going to directly conflict with the traffic to the boat launch, it's that it hinders us in being able to do anything else with the beachgoers on the other side. And so that's why we recommended taking the building down, leaving it as open space until we see what the boat launch does and how we handle the summer traffickers at the beach, the swimmers, the boaters, the picnickers.
There again, that's an argument for the public hearing. Tonight is not, that's not our decision.
You answered my question.
One more, Kev.
Rosalind Knight, Harpswell Neck. This has been going on for 20 years, this building.
Absolutely.
And I'm in favor of taking it down. Mitchell Field is beautiful, just the way it is. And the boat launch and the beach, everybody should just leave it as it is with a park-like. People enjoy walking down there. People enjoy the beach. The traffic is going to be horrendous down there. It's going to be horrendous on Route 123. I live on Route 123. The traffic already is bad. It's just going to be horrendous. It is not a good idea. That's my feeling about it. I don't know what's going to go in that building, But I'm all for leaving Mitchellfield just the way it is. It's beautiful. It should remain park-like, and people enjoy it, I think, the way it is now.
Bill Snellings, Oars. I have not been as involved with some of these discussions as some of my friends have been, but just listening to it tonight, I'd say Matt and Kevin are definitely want to tear the building down. I think you need to give the public a chance to make that decision rather than here tonight. You make the decision, you supported it, you basically are saying to the public, for the reasons that we've given, tear it down. I think you need to give the public as much information as you can and let them decide, not the two of you. Thank you.
You can withdraw your motion, you know.
No, we can't.
Yes, he can.
I'm keeping it.
What do you mean he can't?
I'm kidding.
I will just offer that it has been discussed that renovating the building will come at no cost to the taxpayers, and they wanted to express that in the warrant when we're voting. But future costs to using the building and building maintenance are unknown because it's just not a fully fleshed out idea. I don't think having another year, should the voters say they don't want to demolish the building, and that is the consensus, and I hope everybody comes to the public hearing, that is very important. Should the voters decide not to demolish the building after coming to the public hearing, then the group still has time to fully flesh out the implications of rehabbing a building and what the actual cost to the taxpayers are going to be.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Nope.
Nope. At this point, we'll bring it to the vote. Matt made a motion. I seconded it. All in favor? All opposed? All right.
So just to be clear, it's recommended by Select Board Member Gilly and Select Board Member Johnson and not recommended by Select Board Member Chipman.
That is clear, yes.
We will put that on the ballot.
All right. Moving along, we also have the Harbor and Waterfront Ordinance Amendments and set a public hearing date, time, and location.
I'm going to turn this item over to Harbor Master and Marine Resources Administrator Paul Plummer. He's been working closely with the Aquaculture Task Force over quite an extensive period of time, and this proposal tonight comes from the work that group has been doing.
Yeah, so Paul Plummer, Harbor Master. So the administrator just gave a brief overview. So the aquaculture work group was formed over a year ago by the board. That was to address, initially, a group had approached the board and asked for a moratorium on aquaculture. The board at that time chose to make a group that could address aquaculture issues and get to the root of kind of the concern and the problem. So that group was formed over the last year. The group has tackled the waters classification plan. That is something that traditionally the Harbor and Waterfront Committee has tried to take on, but it's never come to fruition. So the aquaculture work group did a great job at going through and identifying legacy fishing areas, and that's kind of where we're at tonight with this change in ordinance. The definition would add Type 5 legacy fishing areas, and it would also change the map that goes with this definition.
Paul, in 3 places here it refers to the committee. Doesn't say what the committee is. I'm assuming it's the Harbor and Waterfront Committee. I wonder if we shouldn't specify in those 3 places that it's the Harbor and Waterfront Committee that we're dealing with.
We did discuss this,
Yeah.
correct?
Well, this is a harbor and waterfront ordinance, so the committee that's referenced in this ordinance is the Harbor and Waterfront Committee. We did talk about the select board.
But it's not referenced anywhere.
Well,
In the
this
rest of the
pertains,
ordinance.
this
It's
is
the
the
ordinance.
Harbor and Waterfront ordinance, and we're talking about we can add Harbor and Waterfront Committee if you'd like. But anywhere that committee is used in this ordinance throughout the ordinance, it's referring to Harbor and
When I read it, I assumed it was the Harbor and Waterfront Committee, but it didn't say that.
But even in 3.3.1, you see committee is not changing down there. I
Right.
mean, it exists in the ordinance. You can create a totally separate advisory committee and give it a mission statement, but this is about the Harbor and Waterfront Committee and its role, and it may advise the harbor master on some of the aquaculture leases or licenses, but it's not
Okay,
required to,
I'll buy
but
that.
it may.
I'll buy it, okay.
And I think the other thing to mention too is the current harbor and waterfront ordinance, it recognizes that we have this water classification plan. The select board has the ultimate authority to change the plan, and that would continue to be the case. We will have this proposal from the committee once this is adopted, the new proposal that has the legacy fishing area and any other changes that have been brought up through this process would come before the select board. So the voters are not necessarily adopting the map per se, but we do want to make them aware of what that map looks like, and we can have that available.
We'll have big printouts
Yeah.
for the public hearing.
So we just need to set a public hearing date?
Well,
for
you
it?
need to decide if you are ready to put this proposal with these changes, amendments to the Harbor and Waterfront Ordinance to add legacy fishing areas to the water classification plan, and the, just kind of,
I so move.
those three sections should go on the ballot
Yep, I
on
move-
June
Yeah,
10th.
I move we do that. Yep.
You want to second it, Kevin, because I helped put them together?
Oh, okay, yeah. I'll second it. Any more discussion on it?
Nope.
Yes or no?
Nope.
No.
Nope. All right. All in favor?
Right?
Right?
And do you all recommend it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We do.
I'll be
Looks that way.
reflected.
All right. Where was I?
And then do we still need a date,
So we need-
time, and location?
Yes, we
You
are,
guys have any recommendations?
we do. We have Harpswell Community School for Saturday, May 2nd at 10 o'clock. Or May 3rd,
May
sorry.
3rd.
May 3rd.
And when is the vote? It's this
It's June 10th.
June 10th.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah, because if we
May
made it the
3rd.
10th, it would be too close, wouldn't it? Give the 30 days.
Yep.
I want the vote as close to the hearing as possible. Start voting for the 30-day votes.
And that date's for all, or that public
Yes,
meeting's for all
all
of
the
them?
referendum, the
Yes.
three municipal items,
Yes,
yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Yep.
You said at 10 o'clock?
Mhm.
3rd. Yeah, I so move.
I second.
Any discussion? I don't see any. All in favor?
Right.
Aye. Oh. All right. Authorized congressionally directed spending submission regarding the emergency building.
Yes, so this issue has come up during the planning process for the Central Emergency Services Building, that the town may want to request congressionally directed spending through one of our representatives in Congress. And we did receive at the end of March an application from Senator Collins' office. It was at the very end of March, and the turnaround date is April 14th, Monday. So I do appreciate that Mike Drake spoke directly with a staff member of Senator Collins' office who said, we would be very unlikely to get any congressionally directed spending in fiscal year 26 in the federal budget year. But if we wanted to submit an application, it basically gets us in the queue for a future year. So I don't want to raise people's expectations that we think we're going to get this, because first of all, our voters have not even voted on this item. But if this board would like the staff to submit this application, get it in line for potential future funding, we would be ready to do that. We have a couple questions. The amount that the town might seek to ask Congress for. And again, during the planning process, I think our architect suggested maybe the town might want to ask for $1 million. And the other things that we like to bring to your attention are, there are certain attestations you have to make when you submit this. And of course, we could withdraw the application if our voters do not want to go forward with the project. But basically, when you submit this, you're agreeing to, follow all the rules and regs that the federal government requires with this type of grant.
Well, given that there may not be any federal funds in the future, but under the attestations, the only concern that I would have, certainly we could agree to all these things, but the third one where we the Build America, Buy America Act requires any infrastructure projects funded in whole or in part with federal assistance use only iron, steel, manufactured products, and construction materials produced in the United States. Wow, that's going to be a tough one to guarantee. We'd certainly try.
I don't really have an answer for you on that one.
Yeah.
Other than to make you aware of it and to recognize that it's something we would have to abide by down the road if we were to receive this funding.
How much staff time do you think is involved in filling out and getting the application ready?
I'd say probably 4 to 6 hours. You've got some time into it, yeah.
Well, I'm willing to try it.
Do you have thoughts, Mike?
Did you want to go to the mic?
Go to the mic, Mike.
Thank you.
Since you spoke to the staffer, what are your thoughts?
It didn't sound very likely, but as Christy stated, that we'd be in the queue for next year. I don't know if that's going to benefit us or not.
Do you think it would hurt us?
No.
Okay.
No, the biggest thing is what Select Board Chipman, Mr. Chipman brought up, is the Build America thing. That kind of worries me because the current plan is for a prefab steel apparatus bay. And we all know where that's coming from. It's not from Philadelphia.
Well, we can always withdraw the application.
We could, or, we can wait until the following year and apply, but.
The one thing I was thinking is where you were saying that because we waited so late, that's kind of what's killed us for next year getting it, and the project's not approved yet either. So
Right.
maybe my thought was if we had it in the queue for next year and voters approved the project, maybe that would increase our chances of next year. I do agree with the Buy America, Build America problem that could come, but if we have the ability to withdraw it, and there's a chance that saving taxpayers $1 million.
Yeah.
We could verify that we have the ability to withdraw it. I'm pretty sure I read that.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah, the biggest thing that kills us on the eligibility is the town hasn't voted on
Yeah.
it. If we was approved, we'd be much higher.
Yep.
And
Okay.
looking through their projects, they do approximately one fire station per county.
Oh, okay.
They'll contribute money per county, so that leaves us open. We're in the biggest county, so.
I don't know if anybody even has the answer to this next question, but is any other municipalities in Cumberland County planning on building a fire station anytime soon? That might
be a question.
that might just, if nobody is, that kind of sounds like it's a shoo-in for us next year, and then.
The only one I'm aware of is Wyndham.
Okay.
Wyndham's building a new station.
All right.
But I'm not sure. I can look into it if you'd like.
I don't want to waste a ton of staff time on it either.
Thank you.
So under the attestations, then in the back page, it does say that you certify that you will contact your nearest constituent service center to withdraw. So
Okay,
there is
thank you. I thought I had
There you
seen
go.
that.
Yeah, I move we go forward with it.
I do too. I second.
All right. I see no discussion. All in favor? Aye. All right. Preliminary PFAS results at Mitchell Field from the Friends of Casco Bay. Finally.
Yes, so Heather Kenyon is here tonight with Friends of Casco Bay. They have been doing some PFAS testing in Casco Bay, and recently our harbor master, Paul Plummer, became aware of some of their preliminary results, and we thought it would be a good idea to invite someone from the Friends of Casco Bay to come tonight to talk about the results, particularly in the Mitchell Field area, which may cause us to want to put some particular signage up or take some next steps. So I would turn it over to Heather at this point, if she'd like to present.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. I'm gonna, would you like me to share the slides via Zoom? Or do you want me to just talk about them? I'm happy to share them. I just
Sure.
need to.
I think sharing them would be helpful.
There's more than the people in this room that are interested in this, so, yeah.
I just sent a request to screen share. Okay, great. Okay, so before I get into the slides, I just want to provide you all with just some basic background on the project. We are conducting this sampling effort in partnership with Bigelow Laboratories for Ocean Sciences. So Friends of Casco Bay collects all of the data. It is all analyzed at Bigelow. They were just state certified. Their PFAS lab was just state certified, and they use an EPA certified method so that these results can be used, for regulatory purposes if needed by an agency in the future. The effort itself started last September. The sampling effort started last September. We had a sampling effort in September and one in October. We have another one coming up in May. And then after the AFFF discharge on the former Naval Air Station, we increased our monitoring efforts in the Brunswick and Harpswell Cove area so that we had more data to track the spill. Like I said, we have one more sampling effort coming up. So the project is not finished, but when we were selecting sites for the project, which are 90 sites bay-wide, we put together an advisory committee to inform us on site selection so that the data could be useful for decision makers. Paul Plummer is on our advisory committee. They all got a sneak peek of our preliminary results from our September and our October campaign. And he, after seeing the results at Mitchell Field, asked me if I might like to just present those briefly to you all. So that's the background on the project. And I'm going to share my screen now. Is everybody seeing my slides?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So this is not all 90 sites. Obviously, this is just, Yarmouth, Freeport, Brunswick, some of Harpswell, just to give you an idea of what this is. This is how we present our results. So what you're looking at are pie charts that correspond to a site. The pie charts depict the 8 most commonly detected PFAS out of the 40 that were tested. The size of the circle represents the sum of the 8 in nanograms per liter. So the really small ones, are around 1 to 5 nanograms per liter for a sum of 8 PFAS, those 8 that are up in the legend there. And then the larger ones can get as high as, a couple of hundred, depending on where you are. For example, the Brunswick Naval Air Station. So this is just a sample of our September results. And then if I go to October, maybe. There we go. If I go to October, you'll see how they have changed slightly. So September, October. September, October. So
To what do you attribute that difference?
the changing between the months.
Yeah, the size as well. I mean, the number of nanograms.
Yeah, it it could be a lot of different things. When we sampled in September, it might have rained the week before, and so there was, especially for the land sites, there might have been more running off of the land. It depends on tide. We tried to sample at all different tides so that we could get, a better picture. So depending on the tide, that could have something to do with it. Of course, in the Brunswick area, in August, I think it was very end of August, was the AFFF discharge. So that was really high in September, but then as the system flushes, everything does dilute. And so in October, you have a little bit lesser amounts. But it could be due to a number of different things. PFAS is really kind of hard to track, especially in marine environments. There's not a lot of data on it, which is why we started this effort.
Also, another question, what is the nanograms per liter that starts becoming serious, I guess? So.
Yeah, that's a great question. And if I can just pause that for a minute and I'll talk about Mitchell Field, and then I can get in a little bit about drinking water and fish tissue, and then you might that'll answer your question, I think.
Okay.
So I'm zooming in on Mitchell Field here because that was why I was asked to come today. These results will be available to the public when the study is completed. We are very transparent with our data. Everybody is welcome to it. We'll be hosting more presentations on it. So just focusing on Mitchell Field right here. You're looking, if you can see my cursor, at sites 13, 14, and 15. Sites 13 and 15 were taken, we waded just, ever so slightly into the water off the beach, so fully ocean water. And then site 14 is really the concern, I think, is that small stream that drains right onto the beach. In September, it came back with about 75 nanograms per liter for the sum of 8. When it gets to the beach, it is heavily diluted. So site 13 was about 1.5 nanograms per liter. Site 15 was about 1.1. And then in October, again, less, but site 14 is still the largest circle here. And so not 75, but 45. And that, maybe it hasn't rained in a week. And so there wasn't much coming out of that little stream. Again, it could be a number of different things. It kind of depends on how much, what the groundwater recharge was like recently and factors like that. So this is a stream. Nobody's drinking the stream. Federal drinking water standards are lower, much lower than 45 nanograms per liter. And there are the state Maine CDC does have a fish tissue action level for one PFAS compound, and that's 3.5 nanograms per gram. So the stream is significantly higher than drinking water standards or fish tissue action levels, but you're not drinking this water. When Paul reached out to me and we were kind of chatting about it, my personal opinion, just if I were a user of the beach, would probably be mostly kids playing in the stream and possibly dogs. They tend to drink the water when they go swimming, or they put their hands in their mouth or something like that. Again, even that is not going to be consumed nearly as much as drinking water would be. The studies are very few for PFAS uptake via skin. We have a lot more studies for drinking water and eating it, which is why there are able to be those limits in place. But there aren't any for skin contact. So I will, I'll end it there. I'll maybe, oops, I'll just leave this up for a minute. If you all want to just digest it
Do
and
you guys
ask me,
have any
ask me a question.
plans to go back and check again this year, or was that just a one-time thing, or are you going to be going back on a yearly basis around the same time of the year and kind of be creating a baseline, for lack of better terms?
Yeah, we'll be going back in May to sample again, but then our study ends.
Okay.
Because that's how much we were funded for. So we will have another data point.
Okay.
And just to go back to the drinking water standards, drinking water standards for PFOA and PFOS are 4 parts per trillion. Parts per trillion is equivalent to nanograms per liter. So when you're thinking about drinking, which again, nobody's drinking this per se, 4 nanograms per liter is a lot lower than 75 nanograms per liter.
Heather, did I understand you to say there's no data at this time about absorption through the skin? So we don't know if it goes through skin or not?
There are a few studies that have been published recently. It does go through skin. To what extent that causes harm, I think, is still being studied.
Do you recommend signage, or what should the town do to, is this something that we should put up signs to inform the public of, or wait for more data?
I mean, I think that would be up to you. It would be the first of its kind that signage wise that I know of in Maine regarding skin contact. There are, of course, CDC has do not eat advisories or consumption advisories for fish because of PFAS contamination. It's all freshwater fish because, again, we don't have that much data yet for marine. DEP is doing some studies, though. Of course, Harpswell Cove is precautionarily closed due to the AFFF discharge for shellfish harvesting. So there is some guidance in terms of I've seen signage for, don't eat the fish out of the Presumpscot River, especially the lower stem, because of the do not eat advisory, but there's no guidance really in terms of skin contact. It really would be the first of its kind. There is signage at stormwater outfalls for bacteria contamination. So it's not like, the DEP and municipalities do make their constituents aware of potential, I don't want to say danger, but, issues that might arise from stormwater runoff or eating fish from a certain stream.
At the mic.
Podium.
Don Miskill, I'm the steward at Mitchell Field, Heather. And
Hi, Don.
thank you for doing this. When Paul got the 10 spots, he told me I had 3, so we picked those 3. My question revolves around the creek. Did they actually go up in the creek and test, or did they test the water once the creek water merged with the ocean?
It was fully fresh water. So we didn't
Okay.
go way up.
No,
the
I
creek.
understand.
Yeah, but yes, it was not saline.
Okay.
hmm
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep. And it could be, it could be something simple like this stream is being tested by Friends of Casco Bay and Bigelow Laboratories and results coming soon. It doesn't, if you wanted to post signage, I don't think it needs to be alarming. It could just be like, hey, this is, an area that's being looked at.
When will your May results be available?
So we just got these results from our September and our October campaign, and it's because there's 90 sites and because they go through a pretty rigorous QA/QC process to ensure that everything's of high quality. So it does take a couple of months to process the samples. So I would say well after people
Fall
are
sometime.
already using the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if the town would want to pursue further testing, in 6 months and a year, even if the Friends of Casco Bay is not doing it. Yeah. Yep.
That was something that we discussed at the Mitchell Field Committee, very much so, that by getting this creek test, we could then start to work our way back up, because all the creek systems at Mitchell Field drain to that creek, except for one storm drain on the north side, and that Site 13 is the one that's covering that. And so that was something that we talked about very seriously, that we would then see if we had money available and who we could get the test, and work our way back up the creeks to see where it might actually be coming from. Because some of the creeks that drain into that come from the wooded area, and some come from the field.
Thanks, Don. Anybody else? We good?
Yeah, I think I like Heather's idea of some type of signage, saying this is being tested by Friends of Casco Bay. We could work maybe with you on something like that.
We don't freak people out. Just,
Right.
Yeah, and I
This is
do.
being monitored.
Yeah. I think also you're sharing your results, obviously, with DEP, so they're aware of it. I'm sure they would share those with CDC, et cetera. So, great. Thank you so much, Heather.
Yeah, and as you discuss things, feel free to contact me. I'm happy to help out any way I can.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
All right, sliding along. Leases, contracts, and amendments. Vision appraisal, GEI, not vision appraisal, but consolidated communications planner, and lease for Arbormaster's office.
Okay, so we took vision off the agenda. Yeah, GEI, that's a company that has been hired to do all the engineering for and design work for the boat launch at Mitchell Field, and Dan Bannon is here tonight. He's going to present a change order to the town because of some of the additional design and permitting work that needs to be done. So I'd like to turn things over to Dan Bannon at this point. Is he not? Oh. Hi, Dan.
Good evening. I apologize. Just getting to my computer here. Right. Just 1 second.
If you want to share your screen, you can send us a request.
Okay. I don't think I need to immediately. So I'll just give a brief update. We've heard a lot of talk already tonight about the boat launch that will be constructed at Mitchell Field. We've been working with the town on the project for several years now and are getting close to eventually getting something constructed. So the project has been going on, as I mentioned, for several years, I think longer than anyone expected. We had some significant delays in the permit process, but have gotten through most of that now. And the voters in Harpswell voted to approve the construction funding for the project last November. And so we're now working toward completing final design and getting the project out to bid with the goal of starting construction this fall. So As we've approached the final design phase of the project and are working through the permit process, some additional requirements have been identified. The town's identified an additional permit that's required, and we've just because of the effort required to complete the final design process, and partly related to the delays that have happened overall on the project, GEI is in a position of needing to request additional budget in order to take the project through the point of final design and bidding. So we've submitted a change order to the town. I've reviewed it with Christy and with Mark Ironman, and Christy asked that I come and speak about it to the board. So I guess, is it helpful for me to go into any more detail, or I'm not sure what level of detail the select board would like, or I can just be available to respond to any questions.
I think maybe going over the additional would probably help.
Yeah, okay. Just a second here. I'll actually pull this up. So
I would say, if not, you can just go through it.
Yeah. Well, I'll speak to it here, and I believe members of the board should have copies of this. But we have submitted a change order that covers 3 additional items. One of those is increasing the budget to complete the final design, and that's just a matter of additional effort being required to get us to the point of having a 100% final design that's ready for bidding. This project, again, it's gone on for a lot longer than anyone anticipated, and there's just been a greater level of effort required to complete the final design and work through the extended project schedule. And so that's $8,500 that is requested for the additional design services. There's additional services for permitting, which we've requested $7,000 there. That is, we still have some outstanding items to close out with the planning board permit, and then have actually identified just recently that the town is going to require a wharf permit for this project as well. And that was not something that was previously anticipated with this being a boat launch. So that's, we need to add budget for that. And then the final item is scope and budget to cover the bidding process. So bidding was not part of our scope. Our current scope only would go through completing the final design, but not assisting the town with soliciting bids from contractors for the project. So the third item is adding those services to our scope, and we've requested $6,000 for that. So the total requested change order is $21,500, and that's what we would request be authorized, which would allow us to keep moving forward and get the project finalized and out to bid, and so that the construction can hopefully start this fall.
Okay, I know I'm not alone when I say I'm dismayed at the time and cost that has gone into this so far.
Yeah.
Can you somewhat guarantee that this is the last change order? I mean, I'm not asking for an absolute guarantee, but this is...
I would ask for an absolute guarantee at this point. I mean, this is getting a little ridiculous.
I would say the one thing that is not on here is the construction phase service. And while Dan proposed that, I didn't think the town was ready to sign on to construction phase services because we haven't put the project out to bid yet.
Right.
So I do think that would be coming back. We have those kinds of services when we do a capital road project. The engineers help with designing the project, putting the project out to bid, and then monitoring the contractor to ensure that they are performing what is expected.
It has to be done, but
So
this
that element, I do think we should all agree would be coming back.
okay, but this is the third change order, so it's,
Yeah.
change orders get expensive and they're kind of sloppy, really.
Did the town change the design of the boat launch at all that required you guys to request the $8,500 in additional for the design phase services? Was that due to a change on the town's part, or where did that come from, I guess?
We actually lessened the turnaround area down there at one point.
I thought that was change order 2.
So change order 2 was for the, included, among other things, the change to the turnaround area at the boat launch head. I mean, part of this, I would say this is less related to changes that the town has requested, and it's related to an extended project schedule, which does, that increases costs, and also just the format of contract that we're working under. We're providing these services on a time and materials basis, and so it's as we're approaching final design, we found that more services are required to complete the work than had been budgeted before. And I guess I'll say, we don't anticipate the need for another change. We're getting close to the finish now, and it's hard to guarantee that another change won't come. I mean, I'd say it's kind of impossible to guarantee, especially when things can come up that are clearly changes to what we plan to provide for services. A good example of that is the wharf permit that was identified recently. So within the scope that we're proposing, this is intended to cover the scope that we are currently proposing to provide. If that needs to change in some way, if the town decides to change the project again, then we'd need to discuss that. But I mean, I think we're getting very close to the end of the project now, so I wouldn't anticipate more for this phase.
Well, I realize you're on the hot seat here. It's kind of an uncomfortable place to be, but just the fact that the wharf permit wasn't, I mean, shouldn't you have known that going in before it got to the, I mean, we're hiring you as a professional to deal with these things.
Well, that's something that, I mean, it was brought up just recently. I think even when it was first identified to myself and Mark Ironman, Mark also questioned whether that should be required for a boat launch. It's not a wharf, it's a boat launch, but because it has floats, I guess that is something that the town's going to consider a wharf.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
it's
But that one's on.
Kind of a gray area.
So, yeah, I agree with Dan. That was kind of a gray area. I mean, our town planner, who's very familiar with town planner Margaret McIntyre, but town planner Mark Ironman, who's been involved in this from the get-go, never mentioned a Wharves and Weirs Act. And because boat launches don't typically go, but because there is a series of floats,
correct.
Town planner Margaret McIntyre has questioned that. So that is a recent suggestion.
Well, all right, Margaret. So I tell you what, I'll move the 21.5 and authorize Christie to sign it.
Okay.
I just had one, I'll second it, but I had one additional question. Reading through your memo, it says, we assume that all permit application fees will be waived by the town or paid separately by the town. So where's that permitting fee come in if the town's waiving the fees?
Well, so the budget for permitting is for the effort that's required for us to prepare and file the permit applications, attend the required hearings to go through the wharf permit process. What we're mentioning there as far as being waived, and this is very typical for municipal applications, is there's I believe there's a $450 fee as part of the shoreland use, and there's a fee. I think it's $100 for the flood hazard development permit, but it's those fees that an applicant would normally pay to the municipality, because the municipality is the applicant. We assume that those are waived.
Okay, so that $7,000 is all for your, for lack of better terms, legwork and work and getting paperwork.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm asked every day when that boat launch is going to be done, so let's get her going.
All right. There's a motion seconded.
Yeah, I
Any more-
seconded it
Yeah. I see no discussion. All in favor?
reluctantly.
All right. All right. Consolidated Communications.
Yeah, I'll let you. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
Oh, thanks, Dan.
So as people in this room and on Zoom, you may have seen jumping up on the screen, your internet connection is unstable. While we don't get disconnected, I'm here to say we are going with fiber, which hopefully that message never reappears. But so this contract is with Consolidated Communications to be they have our lines, our phone lines, but we actually are with another company for the call, for the actual phone calls. We'd like to bring that back to Consolidated Communication and also go to have fiber installed at all of our locations, so at the EMS building, transfer station, and town office, and recycling center. And by consolidating everything over to Consolidated Communications and having a better, faster internet provider, we're actually saving money per month. And this contract has been vetted thoroughly with the town's attorneys and Consolidated's attorneys back and forth, and they have come to an agreement and seeking the select board's approval to move forward with this project.
So there's a lot of gloopily-glop in here, but I'm assuming that the phone will be switched over to IP, so it'll be part of the fiber package.
Not on this stage. Not on this stage. We're gonna keep with copper, just switch over to fiber. But yes, the definite plan is we're gonna go over to VoIP.
So I'm looking at a monthly recurring charge of $1,144.
Mm-hmm, correct, which is less than our current charges between Comcast, Granite Telecommunications.
Right, and you add them all together, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I move that we approve it, especially if it saves us money.
Yeah.
And works better. I'll second it.
All right. I see no discussion. All in favor?
Hey.
Hey. All right. Planner.
So the town has had a contract with Plan Maine, which is essentially Mark Ironman's company, since 2016. And he was performing for many years sort of the primary services that a planner would provide a community. We now have an interim town planner, and we have greatly reduced our reliance on planning services with Mark Ironman, but we would like to suggest that we retain him for about up to 10 hours a month between April 1 and September 30. Again, he's got a lot of institutional knowledge about planning issues in the town, ordinance interpretations, ordinance language interpretations. He's very much a resource to our interim town planner, and she has recommended, and I concur with her, that we have these services available to the town.
This was recommended by Margaret as well.
We're never going to let this poor guy retire. I so move.
I second.
No discussion. All in favor?
Here.
Aye. Oh, and lease for Harbor Master's office.
And I'm happy to turn this over to the harbor master. I know this is a project he's been looking forward to, getting office space and a place to have the town's boat on the water. And so we have reached an agreement with Cribstone Holdings LLC, and I'll let Paul Plummer speak to that.
I got to tell you, Paul, this is genius, because people will say that's not the center of town, but by water, that is, you can't get any more center than
It is. It's perfect. It's perfect. So we have town lands, harbor and waterfront. since I've been here, we've searched high and low for a town parcel that could accommodate a small office centrally located that could also have a small wharf for the boat to be easily accessible. And we've had no luck. So we've come into a good opportunity where the wharf owner down there has agreed to lease some office space along with some wharf space for the town boat. The catch behind it is the general public will not be allowed upstairs into the office due to, so we're not discriminating against all folks having the ability to get to that second floor because they're just a stairwell that goes up.
But you can go down and speak to them.
But I can go down and speak to them, and we will always make ourselves accessible either at the town office or another public location that.
How will you know they're there?
So we're going to have signage at both the beginning of the wharf as you come from the Cook's Restaurant, as well as from the water side, and also on the building in case people miss it. So we'll have our cell phones, our emails. The town office folk are going to tell folks to call us if they call here looking for me.
Okay. Yep.
But are you going to have, as silly as this sounds, as somebody who's been to Cook's a lot, you should have a buzzer or something because there's not great cell phone service out there on the wharf. So if somebody gets there and goes to call you and they may not be able to, so maybe we could just get a...
We thought about a wireless ring camera. That
I don't even know if we need that much. Just a standard doorbell that dings, you know?
Yeah.
And they
I think
make
would be
wireless
sufficient.
doorbells, so, you know.
The idea is not to interfere with the commercial operations that are happening. So ideally, they wouldn't even get that close to the building to begin
Okay,
with.
that
So
makes
it would
sense.
be further away from the actual building.
Yeah.
But if it could reach, if the wireless could reach that far, certainly.
It's $500 a month.
$500 a month.
Cheap enough.
Yeah.
All right, I move we do it.
I second enthusiastically.
I don't see any discussion. All in favor?
Whoops.
Oh, hang on. I see Spike's hand go up.
Is the lease for a year renewed every year? What are the
Well,
lease terms?
it's
Just so we
really-
don't get, Paul
That's a
coming back
good
and telling us he
question.
wants to move back to Mitchell Field.
It's really, it's really a one-year lease, but there's an option for a one-year renewal. I think we're looking at this as a pilot program. We're testing it. We want to see how well it works. And then, maybe there's a multi-year agreement, but that would go to the town meeting for the board to get authorization.
And it's just for, I know the answer to this, but just for clarity, it's just for like the boating season. He's not going to be there all winter.
Yeah, I think we're April 15th through December 15th, so.
Yeah.
Not a pleasant spot in the winter.
No.
No. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There you go, Paul.
What was that, Jeff?
All right. Dark Sky Proclamation.
So we have a member of the community who's proposed this proclamation. He's here tonight.
Howard Marshall, Harpswell Neck, and now representing the Board of Directors of the Southern Maine Astronomers. Dark Sky Week is later this month, and we've been going to a number of towns and asking them to just, endorse it. And you have the proclamation there. I don't know if you wanted to make any changes to it or.
Well, we removed, there was
The
mention
thing about the comprehensive
yes,
plan, because it was cribbed from the one for Brunswick, which did have that.
Yeah.
So removing that one phrase is just fine. Any questions?
You know what? I'm going to read this, actually. It's not that long, and I think everyone would like to hear it. It's whereas the aesthetic beauty and wonder of our natural night sky is a shared heritage of all humankind, and whereas the magic of standing beneath the starry night sky inspires the feelings of humility and awe and encourages a growing interest in science and nature, especially among young people, and whereas 80% of the world's population and almost all Americans live under a dome of light pollution, excessive artificial lighting at night that disrupts natural darkness, and may never experience the visual wonder of ecological and health benefits of living under a dark sky, and whereas light pollution has scientifically established economic and environmental consequences which result in significant impacts on the ecology and human health of all communities, and whereas Maine has the largest area of dark skies east of the Mississippi River, and celebrates the International Dark Skies Sanctuary in the Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument and International Dark Sky Park within 100-mile wilderness of the Appalachian Trail, and designated by Dark Sky International. And whereas Harpswell Dark Skies are an attribute supportive of growth of ecotourism, and whereas wasting energy through careless use of outdoor lighting costs the United States roughly $3 billion with a B dollars per year, contributes to global warming and runs counter to Harpswell's commitment to achieve net zero carbon emissions, and demonstrates good stewardship of resources. And whereas the Dark Sky International is the globally recognized authority on light pollution and has created International Dark Skies Week to raise awareness of light pollution and provide free education resources and solutions to the public to encourage the protection of and enjoyment of dark skies and responsible outdoor lighting. Now, we, the Select Board of Town of Harpswell, do hereby declare April 21st to the 28th, 2025, as International Dark Sky Week in the town, and ask each citizen to join us, not only in observing and pondering upon this important week, but also in raising awareness and support of protecting our precious dark skies and resources, and I so move.
I second. I just got a quick question to you. What was I going to say? Do you ask people to do anything, like shut their lights off more at night, or is there anything people should do to kind of honor that time? Do you have any recommendations?
No, I think this is just, an opportunity for people to recognize. And we've held several dark sky events down at Mitchell Field. We have another one scheduled in October, and the turnout was great. The last one was last September, I guess, and we had quite a turnout, and lots of people who are very excited about protecting the fact that this is someplace where on a clear night, almost anywhere in Harpswell, you can go outside and look up and see the Milky Way, which is, as the proclamation said, that's something that 80% of the world has never seen. Harpswell does have very good dark skies, especially for a place that close to a city. Yeah. So no, it's just we just want everybody to be aware that it's International Dark Sky Week, later this month.
I've spent a lot of time in northern Maine, and the sky up there, you can see satellites going by, and it was kind of funny. One night I was out, I don't know what I was doing, putting up campaign signs or something, and there were a couple of deputies in the parking lot out here, and I stopped to talk to them. The power was off in town, so there were no lights. And one of them was looking at, wow, look at all the stars. So anyway, moved and seconded.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All righty. Committee guidelines. I do have to say, this looks like a solution looking for a problem. I've heard some of the discussion around, and I've been at this 11 years. I haven't seen a problem yet.
Are you referring to the committee guidelines and any
Yes.
proposed change to those?
Yes.
The only thing I was going to add is on several of the committees I've served on, we've run into some problems with some seasonal people that are gone for 6 months out of the year. So the only thing I was thinking of was creating some type of matrix where we chose people that were going to be here year-round and able to fill that position on a year-round basis over somebody that could only be in that position for 6 months out of the year.
But there are some guidelines in place. I like the Marine Resource Committee. I think you're allowed to miss 3 meetings and you get the boot. Maybe it's 4.
I think all the committees are like that.
Well, I think the Marine Resources, I believe it's in the ordinance itself, but I think we have some language about reasonable attendance at committee meetings is expected. Continued absence will result in replacement. And then there's a note, Board of Appeals members may only be removed for just cause. I think the Marine Resources Ordinance is much more limited. It's very specific about if you miss X number of meetings, you can be removed.
I just think we should be filling with the committees with people that are going to be present and contributing, 12 months out of the year versus 6. And I understand that we don't always have that opportunity, and that's why I don't want to not include those people, but I think people that are here on a year-round basis and can attend on a monthly basis should take precedent over people that are only here for 6 months.
They do. I'm having trouble trying to think of a case where that is the case.
Harbor and waterfront, town lands.
Harbor and waterfront.
Jack's gone all winter, our secretary.
Oh, but that's a first, actually. I think it's the first winter he's done that.
I mean, a lot of people take off for a couple months.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line? 6 months? I mean,
No, I just think that I think we should look at that when appointing people to committees. That should be taken into consideration, how much time and availability people have. Because it's no good to appoint somebody to a committee if they're not going to be there for half the time.
Well, but, in Jack's case, over the years, he's missed about 6 meetings.
Yeah, I just use him, and there's another person, I can't remember the gentleman's name, on town lands that takes off in the winter as well.
Yeah, I get your point.
well, how do you want to write this into the committee guidelines?
You want to give me 2 weeks, and I'll write something up, and I can forward it to Kirsty or Terry, and they could forward it out to you guys?
Yeah, that'll work.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Spike Hybel. I don't know. I don't think you have to rewrite anything, because my recollection when I was on the Mitchell Field Committee, I've been on it several times, and also on solid waste, and there was one other one. But there was a 75% rule in there that you had to.
It's not that specific now. It just says
Okay.
reasonable
Well,
attendance.
Yeah, but so when I reread the guidelines, I thought it was a 75% rule, which is true of nonprofit boards and that kind of stuff. They want people to be there to participate. But there were times when people just didn't show up, and they didn't show up for 2 or 3 meetings. It's like, and so then when they come to a meeting, they're not fresh on what's going on. Some of our committees, the work is ongoing. It's not just sort of advisory. There's a lot of things happening. And I think it's not fair to the committee to have people that just sort of show up when they're ready to show up. So I'm in favor of, at least tightening it up and then saying, you missed 3 meetings. You got a good reason. Oh, you're in the hospital. Okay, that's one thing. But if you just missed them because you decided to go to Greece.
Yep. All righty. We just do a nod of the head. What Matt offered.
Hang on. We got 2 more.
Hi, Mary Ann Naif. As chair of 2 different committees in town, we have something in there now that basically says if you're not able to make meetings, I guess what I'm saying is each committee has its own issues, and especially if you have associate members, we have dealt with people who offer a lot to the committees, but they can't make a lot of meetings. Have asked them to be an associate so that you still have your committee members available. It's really difficult many times to find people to work on the committees. And we're trying to get younger people to work on committees as well. I guess all I'm saying is I think it's great to have what is in there now, but to become so specific, I don't know that it's going to gain us that much more. One of the committees that I'm on, went to an associate. He still can't make meetings, so just suggested that he did not apply again this year. I just think there's ways to do this without making it a real, you missed 3 meetings, you're out.
So it's self-regulating, you're saying?
A little bit, I think, because each committee's a little bit different and has different needs.
I do like your associate idea there as well. I think you bring up a good point there too, Mary Ann. Maybe if if we realize that it's a seasonal person or somebody that's only here for part of the year, let's make them an associate member.
Yeah.
I think we need to look at making sure that we have contributing members on the committee.
Oh, definitely. And, I think that goes back to the committee chair and the people on the committee as well.
Yeah.
So anyhow, just my thought.
Yeah.
Rose Price. How about if you made it 3 consecutive meetings instead of a reasonable or 75% type thing? Because that way it wouldn't be as onerous on people if they do go away. I mean, maybe some are gone for 3 months in a row, but if they can make, all the meetings, if they miss 3 meetings a year, but they aren't consecutive, I don't see that as an issue, because people do have conflicts sometimes. They go on vacation, they can't really change anything. But if it's consecutive, then that establishes a pattern. And I don't remember now whether an associate member constitutes part of a quorum or not, but if they do, that's fine. If they don't, and they aren't there, they can't vote anyhow unless there's not a quorum of full members. So I just throw that out for consideration if you want to make a change to the general guidelines.
I will add, we could avoid all of this if we made all of the committee meetings Zoom capable, because then people that did take off in the wintertime would have the ability to still be contributing members. You may gain some more young people, and I would be far more supportive of something along those lines than any type of limitations. I'd be more apt to make I'd prefer to change the committee guidelines in that sense and make everyone have the Zoom option. But I do understand that we need to hire some staff before we can do that. So I'm willing to wait on that, but that's eventually where I'd like to see this go.
All right.
Well, I guess we can just kind of leave it where it's at.
There's a thought. All righty. We'll move on. Employment, seasonal park, or waterfront assistant, and wage and salary adjustment.
So the seasonal parks and waterfront assistant position is kind of a new position. We're taking a former kind of town lands monitor position and kind of merging it with the needs of the harbor and waterfront department. And Paul Plummer, our harbor master, is going to oversee this position. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about the duties and responsibilities.
I see you took the ability to crawl out of the physical demand.
It was in there?
It was in the last one.
There's a consultant that usually recommends that.
Paul Plummer, Town Harbor Master. So we're rolling in the town lands, or I'm sorry, the park monitor that we had under town lands in the previous years, and rolling that into some more seasonal help on the waterfront, just because we have a lot going on. And this person would help myself and or the deputy harbor master, depending on who's working during that time. Pretty much the same as the park monitor position we had with monitoring the parks. They'll help with doing maintenance, general maintenance, sign installation, you name it, just basic maintenance. If it's something too extreme, we'll contract that out, obviously. But this person also monitors parking ordinances, like along Robin Hood Road, Bethel Point, just some of the hot areas where there's actually a lot of traffic in the summertime.
But we will have separate Cedar Beach monitors.
Yes, this person can fill in as needed.
fill in, yeah.
Certainly, if the rec department's having a hard time staffing, we can definitely help with that. But we were waiting for the budget to pass to bring this before you, and looking for approval.
I so move that we approve this, and I want to. It doesn't specify dogs under ensuring park policies, but boy, it's going to keep somebody busy.
We did make. What we'd like to do is have them report everything to the animal control officer. So certainly, this person can remind folks of rules, but ultimately that would fall under the animal control officer. And we'll make sure that they have their contact information.
Yep.
A second.
Any more discussion? It didn't look like any. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, wage and salary adjustments, Christie?
Yes, so the wage and salary adjustments were put into the budget based on the select board's review earlier in the budget season. Our budgets have passed now, and we are asking the board to approve those wage and salary adjustments. All of the staff essentially got a 2.5% increase, but there were additional adjustments, again, to try to get some of our positions up to what we consider sort of the midpoint of the salary range of those levels. And I will say, in addition to this, the budget proposes to bring in a salary consultant to look at our compensation structure. The various levels that we have, the wage scale and how it compares to other communities in our labor market, our compensation package, which would include benefits, because we find that we need to be competitive if we're going to retain employees and attract new employees.
Well, after having a lot of discussion about this looks exactly like what you had proposed and what we had agreed on earlier. So I move that we do it.
I second.
And I would say we just this week had our former bookkeeper return from vacation and retirement to help us out until we have our new bookkeeper.
Yep.
But we're close to being able to present the select board with a new person in that position, but it's still going to be a few weeks. So we are recommending that we retain Rhonda Peak for this period of time.
I'm fine with that, yeah.
Do you guys know when you're meeting with that consultant?
We will bring to the board an RFP, or more like an RFQ, that you will approve as a board, talking about what the expectations are from the town, that, the services that the consultant would perform. That's going to come to the board for your review.
Sometime later this year.
Then we would send it out, the consultants would respond, we can interview consultants.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So that's coming.
Thank you.
That'll be on your
All right,
agenda.
yeah. No, thank you. I was just trying to stay on base.
Thank you.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You need a motion for Rhonda, or is you just, a nod is okay?
I think a nod is okay. What do you think? Okay,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she's already back, so.
Yeah, but she's not staying that long. It's just
No.
a temp, she would be a temporary employee.
Yeah. Oh, she
So-
says that.
Yeah.
All right. Treasurer's report.
Wawas. Again.
Good evening, Terry Gaudette, the town's treasurer. I'd like to start by saying, Selectman Gilly, I did not have the opportunity this week with you, but you did see in your mail slot the monthly reports. I'd love to set aside some time to review these reports with you. This treasurer's report that I provide monthly is a summary of the appropriation control report, the revenue control report, and the town's trial balance. So,
And you'll love it.
I do actually like it, as silly as that sounds.
And so, of course, with our year end being December 31st, and then going through our financial statements and our audit, I don't start doing the monthly reports until April for the first quarter. So this report is as of March 31st, 2025. The town's cash balances was $4.1 million. 2024 outstanding taxes was $82,000. Those, the tax collector will be sending out the lien notices in June, the 30-day notices in May, and then the liens will be filed in June. So that often generates those payments. Other year outstanding taxes is $15,204, which includes outstanding liens for the 2023 tax year, which they'll foreclose in December. Selectman Gilly, you may be familiar with this, but so your taxes go unpaid. You have an 18-month schedule, and so the tax collector makes several attempts, and then liens are filed, and then they foreclose automatically foreclose if they don't get paid. And so lots of effort go out to outreach to people, and we're fortunate, because we don't want, the town doesn't want to own people's homes.
We haven't had in a long time.
Not in quite some time, exactly, so.
A lot of work on your part, thank you.
And and on the tax collector's part, absolutely, so, and people don't want to not, pay their taxes, so we do our best to work with them. Well, most people I deal with, I will make that statement, but anyways, so the 2023 taxes, unpaid liens would foreclose in December, but we'll do our reach out. On the revenue and expense side, non-property tax revenue available to reduce the tax commitment is $737,000, just slightly under a quarter of the year. The first quarter is always a little bit slower, but that will certainly catch up. I will say, if you noticed on the revenue sheet, one thing that really does jump out is the recycling and transfer station fees. Significantly less than last year, but you got to work into the fact that first quarter of 2024, we had the January storms, and there was immense amounts of material being disposed of. So that's really the reason behind that decrease. The single largest source of revenue other than property taxes is excise tax, and that's doing fine. It's following historical trends anyways. Mooring and shellfish license revenues reflects 50% and 97%, and that's due to the dates that they were due. Moorings was due May 1st, and shellfish was in March. So they're basically paid moorings. The harbor master just sent out 7, and I know he just left, but staff helped him fold 700 letters to get mailed out to, because again, we went to this electronic system, but some people still want paper, so we're making sure everybody gets this notice, because then it's going to just be all electronic statements at some point, perhaps, except for those that aren't signed up electronically. The first annual installment for the tower leases at Mitchell Field and the transfer station have been received, and the town has received, we've received our first payments regarding Federal Emergency Management Agency funds. So we have received a total, and Mike Drake will be doing a more complete report, but we have received $54,765.22 in FEMA funds, and that was relating to the January 2024 storms, specifically the debris removal at the town's Potts Point dock, the Giant Stairs trail replacement that was washed away. There were some minor trail repairs done to Cliff Trail, Graveyard Point boat launch, and repairs to Abner Point, Lowell's Cove, and Grassy Roads. And our fire administrator, we tell him quite regularly, especially when we hear from how complicated that process is. He's done a good job staying on top of that, and so much more is expected relating to the dock, which will probably be on your next
Hopefully.
regular meeting agenda. On the expense side, the 2025 budget articles, as we all know, were first scheduled on March 8th, which had to be canceled, and then voters did approve the town's budget on March 22nd. So you will see new projects such as wage salary consultant coming before you on your agenda, new offices for the harbor master, things of that nature now that the budget has been approved. Prior to the budget being approved, significant or new items, expenses were obviously curtailed. Some expenditures appear to be greater than 25% due to the timing of contract payments such as law enforcement and the Marine Patrol and the winter plow contract. 2025 reserve expenditures include the town's HVAC contract, engineering relating to the Capitol Road project for Peabody and Little Island Road, and engineering relating to the recycling center, Phase 2 project, and the Mitchell Field boat launch and the Central Emergency Services building. ARPA, we're just starting to pick up on that now. We did just get our spare parts in relating to the emergency communication tower, and and there'll be more to come on that as voters did approve. Any unexpended ARPA funds and other categories will all go towards emergency services and emergency services communications. But that's it in a summary, and again, I'd be happy to review things with you, Selectman Gilly, or anybody, but
No,
obviously
heck,
a particular
no, it's
interest
fine.
with you.
I like all those little numbers. You're going to love it.
I do.
Thank
you. Because they all, 2 + 2 is always 4.
Most of the time, anyway.
Oh, it is.
All right. Public comment again? Anybody moving?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. I guess so.
Yeah.
You moving? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still here. Matt knows a lot about numbers, just so you know.
Yes, I know.
I've heard.
Mitchell Field, the boat that's sitting there derelict.
Oh, yeah.
Can we get rid of that boat? And in particular, I heard through the grapevine that there may be other boats, particularly at Mackerel Cove, that have gone south, and the town's going to reclaim them or possess them. And are they going to end up at Mitchell Field? I mean, Mitchell Field's not meant to be a boat graveyard, I don't think. So I can't understand why you went through that whole process and the boat just sits there. I mean, I know it's hard to get rid of them, but
Because it did involve getting some legal advice.
I
and
heard.
we had extensive legal fees last year. So this is on our radar screen. We know the owner of this boat. We have notified the owner of this boat to remove the boat, and it's not being removed. So therefore, we're trying to figure out what our next kind of legal right is in terms of removing the boat and taking it where, you know,
You could have it.
and
It's
who
a dandy.
ultimately
It's
pays for it.
we've got a lot of chainsaws in town, so we could reduce it down to small items if we
But
had to.
because we know the owner, we're trying to work through that process.
I
but
thought that
it's
had
not
already
going
been
very
done, just
well.
in terms of when you take it out of the water, when you finally recover it, he loses possession. So I don't know what the legal is, but
Well,
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do.
well, part of the problem was that there's still fluids on the boat, and we were waiting for Clean Harbors to come and pump it out. And at the time we did that, they were busy on the base, and I haven't heard any updates from Clean Harbors. And basically, it's going to be chopped up and taken to the dump.
Well, I think we're looking at whether or not we have the right to take this boat to a certain location and drop it off for somebody else who we believe owns it
How
to
about
deal
put it in
with.
this guy's front yard?
I think that's where she's headed with it.
But the person does not necessarily own property. This is another
Yeah.
issue.
That makes it hard.
Yeah. And the people that hauled it there don't want to take it anywhere else.
Oh, gosh.
Don't blame 'em.
Anyway,
So listen, I'm not the public, but I want to reiterate John Gillum Day is next week, starting on Monday the 14th and through Saturday the 19th. So all week long, you can pick up trash on the side of the road, free trash bags at the stores, and free pizza lunch on Saturday the 19th here in this room. So there.
I'll be home by then.
I hope so. I'll be saving a trash bag for you, so.
Excellent. Other business, letter of support for Brunswick Bridge Project.
So again, this is the season of seeking congressionally directed spending, and in the spirit of helping our neighboring community, Brunswick reached out and asked for a letter of support because they know applications are due Monday. They would like a letter of support for both Senator Collins and King for a bridge project in Brunswick, the Bungaduck Road Bridge Project. And we were provided with a sample letter that they would like the town of Harpswell to sign
It's
off
not really a
on.
bridge, it's a big culvert.
Oh,
but-
okay.
but-
I thought it was called a bridge project,
But,
but it's
yeah.
really a culvert?
Yeah, that's a lot of
box
danger for
culvert?
Harpswell, not having that road to escape.
So I think, again, in the spirit of helping.
Yeah, I move we
community.
I second
send
it.
the letter.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Oh dear, look at this.
And there are just a couple of, 2 more leaseholders have turned in their Oars Island Bridge wharf lease for the select board to sign.
Okay.
Good.
And I guess one other thing, the town's been working on an issue over in the Cundy's Harbor area involving a wharf. We're getting close to having a draft consent agreement
Oh, is that
that
the one down
the
by
board,
the town's landing down to,
Wharf Road.
no.
where?
this-
Field Road.
Field Road.
Field Road, right,
Field Road.
thank you, Field Road.
And it's possible we would ask the board to hold a special select board meeting next Thursday. It would be a public hearing. We would post the draft consent agreement on Tuesday if this is ready to go forward, and then the public hearing would be on Thursday night. Otherwise, it may be at your next regularly scheduled meeting on April 24th. So I just wanted to.
I'm not going anywhere, so I'm
I'm gone next Thursday at a training in Ellsworth until.
Hey, wait a minute, you one of those
4:30
people that take off for a...
No.
But he didn't know there was going to be a meeting.
Yeah, I just found out. I'm a man of many hats. I'm on the zone council for lobstering too, and I have training for that.
Okay, I guess that's all
right. Anything else?
Can we schedule it later? If we
I'll
could
look
do like
into
7
that.
o'clock.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
I'm fine. I can make it back in time for that.
That's probably a possibility.
If that's doable for everybody
Instead
else.
of 6?
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry to be a.
No, I think
Wednesday?
that's good.
What was that, Kevin? I'm sorry.
How about Wednesday?
I'm leaving Wednesday night actually to go to Ellsworth. They paid for a hotel room for me. I'm not going to say no to free hotel room.
Well, I can't miss that. By the way, mine isn't free down here.
DMR paid for mine.
Well, I'll see what I can do. All right. So next Thursday, what, 7 o'clock?
Yeah.
If needed.
If that works for
To
you.
be confirmed. We,
Be
you know, we
confirmed.
don't have the document yet.
Okay.
So
Oh, okay.
it's close.
Stand by.
I will say if you guys did want to do 6 and I was able to zoom in like Kevin is, I'm fine with that if that works best for everyone. I can be
We'll
flexible.
look at that, but I think 7's going to work better, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to miss that one. All right. If there's nothing else,
Nope.
it's almost dinner time.
That's
I eat first.
It's only 5:30 here, so
Nice.
that's right. All right. I guess we're done.
Okay.
See you later.
Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you.
Give it a shot.